As human beings, our heart's desire is to connect, to play, to dance, to feel. And what we have been doing is sacrificing, cutting ourselves down, trying to fulfill these purposes just to stay alive. And the masses are working themselves to the bone for very little, very little pay, very little, and just giving away their time, because if they had so much time to themselves, um, otherwise they would be apparently doing crazy things that would, derail the entire systems that are there. So, what is going on is that just everyone is just working themselves to madness, stay alive. And as human beings, we are all animals. We're part of this system, this collective. And what Jung meant when he said the collective unconscious is that the societies we live in, the groups, have social orders, whether it's dominance hierarchies or pecking orders. They exist. And these give rise to this collective thinking, which are the social values and norms of a particular society. And that in itself creates this larger consciousness, the same way the billions of cells inside a human being create this mass, energy, vibration, frequency. And there is a goal, the purpose, that there is the physical purpose that we're internally, that's going on with us, that we're surviving, and externally we're living our life according to a purpose. We're doing things every day, day in and day out, to meet certain needs. Similarly, societies function in certain ways, and these ways are kind of these ways are emblematic of what they basically perceive society to be. So the social rules, for instance, the way we eat in these circular ceramic or glass containers called plates. Usually glass, but they could be rectangular. We use these metallic objects called spoons and forks, and they are the way they are because spoons are circular from one end, and from the other they are just like a stick, basically. And forks are a certain way they are. All these are just examples, very tiny examples of social norms and conventions that we are conditioned into. The same way, genders are there because of social conditioning that we are conditioned into. So we are taught a certain way to be because of our gender. So we associate certain things with that. If we're a man, we may be taught that being assertive is something that's prized because our peers make fun of us if we don't, go up to this girl and start talking to her. So we learn that this is a value that is positively reinforced. It has positive consequences. It has rewards. So we go ahead and do that. And things that don't have rewards, for instance, if we want to pursue a career like doing something that's not associated with that particular thing, like as a woman, we are angry, and it's not socially acceptable for women to be angry, so we have to suppress our anger. Then that becomes part of her shadow, and she learns to not be that way. So there are millions and billions of social rules that we learn along our socialization process as we grow older. From the time we are babies, infants, and we learn basic verbal physical cues, that a parent that's smiling means they're happy. So, the same way, we are all part of this pecking order, and that is the collective conscious or the unconscious that we are not aware of. Because from my travels and from all the time I've spent experiencing this life, I realized that, and you must too, that every culture and religion thinks they're right. We are fighting over who's right and who's not all the time. Like there's one absolute right and wrong. Is there? These are all part of the. So, for instance, if a society is very aggressive or very loud, which I know certain people from certain ethnic groups are, I won't take names. Some people are just there, the way their society works. People don't talk that loudly, they talk softly. Maybe because they don't live in hugely populated, densely populated cities. Maybe it's not that loud. Or maybe it's just the cultural heritage they grew up with. So what's normal is different. We're always fighting about what's normal and what's not normal. And then we make people, every society across the board, everyone who has a slightly different accent, a slightly different mannerism, a slightly different way of thinking. The societies, do we persevere perhaps, or we like people to conform because it makes us feel comfortable, because we feel like our social system is working. So those people who don't are the ones that are alienated across the board. If you're American, you have a British accent, you stand out. If you have a Pakistani accent, you get treated differently. If you're Pakistani and you have like, there are certain people in Pakistan who have sort of like a Chinese accent because in their region, that's the regionally geographically they're close to that, and that's how it is being them. But people just people are looking for differences. Um, what I realized when I was traveling, like when I went to Thailand, and went to the full moon party, I realized more so than I ever have that we are all human animals, and if we are given the opportunity to go wild, to not have people around us who know us very well. So, for instance, in that situation, you're on holiday, you have time off from work, you're in a country where no one knows you, everyone's going wild, that creates this atmosphere for you to unleash. So, contrast that with when you're in your own neighborhood or in your own community where you've lived your whole life, and most people um, around the world, now we have a little more travel, but most people around the world stay in the same communities they've always been in. So if you are in that situation, realize that you're gonna stay there, and how would you react? Would you go out and do like things that would antagonize people? Most people don't. Most people find it better to conform because there are social advantages to conformity. Conformity differs from place to place. So, what I realized is that we're all social animals. We're all playing these games as the complex animals that we are to do basically the things that animals do, which is survive, eat, sleep, have sex, all those things. The way we interact doing it, some places might go up and actually physically do something to someone, but that's like much rarer compared to we've learned to socially negotiate. And because those social rules are so important in terms of helping people feel there is a status quo, there is consistency. There are things they can rely on to know that one day from the next, things are going to be the same. People cling to that. If you go into circles like elite social circles, what do? They don't go to parties to have fun. If they're having fun, everyone's aware of who's talking to whom, who's doing what, and the more people there are in a smaller place, the longer they know each other, the more often they see each other, the more they know about each other, the more chances there are that, and the more higher up on the social hierarchy they want to be or are already part of elite groups, the more they're going to try to, how do I describe it? The more they're going to try to keep tabs on each other, flash their money, flash their status signal that they are doing so well. And in some ways, the more rigid structures they will cling to in terms of getting up those hierarchies. So the higher the stakes, in a way, the more that's going to happen. So if you look at like gangs, on the street, what happens? It's kind of like the same thing because the stakes are super high there too, because you need to survive and the resources to survive may be very limited, and the way to achieve that is also difficult. So the more social integration there is, because you may know people in that area very well, the more there's like reputation and street cred and all these things that make people sort of trust you or talk about you. And then those social rules come into order more and more. So while we all want to believe we are civilized, we have a long way to go in terms of finding connection, finding how to meet our inner desires in a way that is constructive. And unfortunately, most of us are tied up in the daily grind from 9 to 5. We're not able to do things that we want to do from our soul. And that has a great impact on just being able to stop and think, like if you're always going, you won't even have time to stop and think about how your week went, how your day went. You don't even remember. So all you're doing is rushing from place to place. And that really doesn't help in the grand scheme of things. To feel like there is a sense of continuity, there's a sense of history, of where you're coming from, where you're going, of progress, of change in a structured way, in a reflective way, in a way that helps us. That's just not happening. So, for those of us who want to break free of those patterns, it is a challenge, but also an opportunity to let go of all those things. The collective unconscious is in flux right now with all the changes that are happening. So which side do we choose? Which side do we decide to go on? We'll see. And eventually time will tell where we end up. But realizing that we are very evolved human beings and we're trying to get past those things and we're trying to transcend and self-actualize in ways where our inner gifts are manifested in the world while also fulfilling our desires in a way that doesn't harm us or anyone else is kind of how it's going in today's day and age. And with this new COVID situation, we don't know when that's going to end. We can try to find these sanctuaries of sanity in all the madness that surrounds us, and through finding a sense of purpose in the madness. That's what I'm trying to do, and feel like that is the way forward for us to escape this elite, serving the elite system that just keeps us competing for metallic objects with wheels called cars, and how fancy those branded cars are, and things like that that don't make us happy no matter how many material possessions we are, because it has been shown, proved beyond anything, like the longest, the most extensive studies, like Harvard did this 60-80-year-old study on what makes people happy, and it's like your social connections, meaningful relationships are what make people happy, not object material things. But when you put survival in the terms that if you don't work, you're not going to survive, and to work, you have to work these many hours because you're going to get paid this much. That's why we're all stuck in this grind where most people just are waiting for the weekend. Like in New York City, people just go mad on Friday. It's like literally like people have been released from prison, and they've been in prison their whole lives, or 20 years, and they're just like driving like mad. They're getting drunk like mad, and it's just every day that's kind of what they come home to. They just kind of soothe themselves and the inner loneliness and the emptiness inside by eating, by filling their cup with alcohol or other substances or anything just to get through the day. And if they're not, if they have families, then they're just kind of getting ready for the next day. And that's how every day goes when you come home and then you're in the morning rushing off. And that is just a way to keep us stuck in those cycles. And escaping that into finding our purpose within the capitalist system is kind of the way to go. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I really want to do with my life. And that's how I see us getting out of this paradigm. It's not going to be fast, it's not going to be easy, but it's the only way forward to stop selling our time for pennies on the clock. And there's no other way forward. I don't see it. So that's kind of what I think is the way forward to go. And with our anxieties, with our struggles, I feel like when we have complex PTSD, we are stuck in that perpetual freeze mode where we have frozen as at stages of our development where we didn't get past. And that creates even more existential angst for us to get out of, with the situation as it is in every sphere. So it feels harder when you feel, and most of us feel like we're not enough, we're not gonna make it. We have to keep proving ourselves. We're not perfect, but we want to be better than others, and there's not enough in the world to go around, and we have to beat the next guy to get on top of our stuff. So that's kind of how, our social conscious, it's kind of like animals, but we have centered it around money now, because money is a determinant of success, and that is in turn determinant of survival and where we are on the hierarchy of animals, just like the food chain works. So if we're on top of the food chain, that's where everyone wants to be. So are we on top of the food chain, and how are we doing as a species in itself? I feel like we have lost our way, and there are people who are trying to come out of it. So that can be the only way forward, to come out of this generations of trauma and sadness and not knowing ourselves, not understanding ourselves, and not having the time to do that, or not having the tools or knowledge to do that we have available today. So, yeah. So I'm just coming back to making videos, and I'm going to do a lot more research and create a lot more content in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for more, and gonna develop some more content, so I'm really excited about that. and see you guys. Hope everyone out there is doing great. Bye.